right, Fred. It was it inevitable that FIFA were going to back down on this?
I think once New Zealand football, the New Zealand government, the Australian, the FFA and the Australian government all sort of raised queries and issues with it, I thought pretty much, and then also the players around the world were raising issues with the sponsorship, then I think FIFA, and to their credit, actually finally listened and have pulled the pin on it.
Having said that, yes, they've listened and pulled the pin, but when you listen or read Infantino's words, it's hardly a back down, is it? He's kind of a little spiteful about it, and he raises the question. He says, listen, there's 211 countries that are affiliated to FIFA. We accept sponsorship, and he names them: United States, China, India, the Saudis. He goes on. I don't think he's actually sitting there saying, oops, we made a mistake.
No. And also because he's moved FIFA very much aligned in the Middle East. You know, he lives there himself personally, and you know, obviously the World Cup's just been there, so he's been moving in those circles for the last 4 to 6, 8 years. So so for him, he would like to have more sponsorship coming out of there. I think also he said that the networks haven't provided the backing for the tournament that he was wanting, that FIFA were wanting. So he said we're not going to accept a lower priced bid from the television networks. So there isn't as much sponsorship floating around for the Women's World Cup as there is for obviously the Men's World Cup. So that's an issue for FIFA going forward as well.
Well, and not in terms of their bank balance when they've got about $5 billion from the last tournament, Fred. I mean, just do the interest if they put it in at the ASB. They get a fair return on that, don't they? There's many questions
well,
to be...
it also raises the question. It raises the question there, like FIFA's going, they've upped the prize money for the Women's World Cup to, I think it was $200 million US. The men's, maybe that's New Zealand dollars. The men, in comparison, $700 million. So there's still a decent gap there. Now, a lot of players are saying, we deserve equal pay and equal prize money, and that's their right. So FIFA go, well, we haven't got the sponsorship for the tournament. However, it's a decision that FIFA could make themselves. They could turn around and say, we're going to pay equal prize money. So I think that's a good question for FIFA to say, do you believe in this, or are you paying lip service to it?
It's very rare for FIFA to respond to any kind of criticism and back away at all. And so I do find the decision a little surprising, but I suppose it's one of those ones where Infantino can go, okay, well, you can win this one, but this doesn't change the bigger picture where, as you say, we've had a World Cup in Qatar already, and it's obvious that they're prepared to accept whatever money from whatever source anyway. So the other question I've got, Fred, is that if this was a Saudi tourism sponsorship of the Men's World Cup, and you're still looking at the same human rights and you're still looking at the same issues with women and the lack of rights that they have, would the sponsorship be withdrawn?
I don't think so. I think it's because it is such a stark contrast with females in that country, and I think that really raises the red flags in this scenario. I think there is a way to go whereby it's like you look at the country as a whole, depending on what the sponsorship is, and then go, this is why we don't want to have any sponsorship from this area. And as Infantino said, we trade with them. If you're 100% consistent, you wouldn't trade with a lot of these countries. And I think we've also seen there's a school of thought that goes, well, get in there and try and make change. Try and influence change from the inside. You can't do that from the outside throwing rocks. So get in there, deal with these people, work with the people, and try and change the way they operate. And maybe that's a better avenue, being a bit more open and transparent about it.
I was personally very critical of this as soon as the story came up that the sponsorship, that Saudi were going to sponsorship, just because it didn't feel right. It felt wrong in every single aspect. But when we talk about that, Lydia Ko went to Saudi Arabia, played a golf tournament, won more money than she's ever won from any other tournament, talks about, meeting people in the streets and the women are having such a good life and all of this kind of stuff. And so, there are other sports that happily take the dollar, mate. Why are we so big and nasty towards FIFA and not the rest?
I think you're in a phase at the moment with football, especially, where and I've said this before. I think the game on the female side has been held back through decisions, through investment, and that's changing. And I think that just at the moment, the climate at the moment is that there's very much an awareness of where the money's coming from and how it's being distributed. And I think this is a real good case in point for that. So maybe, and hopefully in a number of years that things have changed, and this is not a story, because we look at Saudi Arabia and go, okay, things are moving in the right direction. We're happy to accept the money from that part of the world. But right now, I think it's just a bit too raw.
So it's a real time and place thing, isn't it? It just happens to be
I think so.
Yeah, this issue, this event, and because it's the biggest sporting female event on the planet.
Exactly, and I also think that you're in a different scenario to an individual sport, because that's a decision Lydia Ko makes herself. It's not a decision that the New Zealand football make, or the FFA make, or a team of people make. It's she decides herself, do I go to Saudi Arabia? Do I play in the tournament? Do I accept the money? And obviously for her, she's comfortable doing that. And I think there's probably some other players who go, yeah, actually, no, I'll bypass that tournament, even though it's not, financially it's going to cost me, but I'm going to make a stand. And there are players all over the world, tennis players, golfers, that make those decisions, but you probably don't hear about them as much as you do about these sort of things that get put in the media, like with this FIFA sponsorship.